12,000 years ago, something walked through the forests of South America that made early humans stop in their tracks. It stood 6 meters tall on its hind legs. It weighed 4 tons. It had claws the length of a human forearm. And it was not a predator. It was something stranger, and in many ways more dangerous. This is Megatherium americanum, the giant ground sloth. And for millions of years, it had no reason to fear anything at all. The giant ground sloth was a giant relative of the modern tree sloth, but it had nothing of the tree sloth's fragility. It was built like a tank, walked like a bear, and ate like a machine. It lived across South America for over 5 million years, surviving ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and sea level changes that wiped out hundreds of other species. It was one of the toughest animals this continent ever produced. Its closest living relatives today are the 3 modern sloth species and the anteater. But nothing alive today gives you an honest sense of what Megatherium actually was. Megatherium had bony armor plates embedded in its skin, called osteoderms, like a crocodile has under its scales. Its hide was not just thick, it was literally reinforced with bone. On all fours, Megatherium was 6 meters long and 2 meters at the shoulder. That is taller at the shoulder than a giraffe. Rearing up on its hind legs, which it did regularly to reach high tree branches, it stood 6 meters tall, eye level with a second-floor window, taller than a double-decker bus. It weighed up to 4 tons, comparable to a large hippopotamus. But unlike a hippo, it could stand upright and reach things nothing else on land could reach. Scientists have found ancient trees in South America with bark scar patterns that match Megatherium claw marks at heights no other animal on Earth could have reached. These trees still exist. The scars are still visible. The claws of Megatherium were not weapons designed for killing. They were tools for eating. But they could function as weapons, and at 50 centimeters long they were terrifying ones. Megatherium walked knuckle down on its front limbs, with its claws curled inward to protect the tips, the same way a gorilla walks. But these knuckles left impressions in the earth the size of dinner plates. Those claws could hook into a branch 6 meters up and pull it to the ground. The same claws could open a carcass. Scientists believe Megatherium may have occasionally scavenged meat, making it not quite the peaceful herbivore we once thought. This changed everything scientists thought about Megatherium. It was not just a slow, peaceful browser. It was an opportunistic feeder, a survivor, something that used every resource available. Megatherium moved slowly, very slowly. Scientists estimate its top speed at around 5 kilometers per hour, a fast human walk. But at 4 tons, even slow movement carried devastating momentum. Its footprints have been found preserved in ancient mud, each one 35 centimeters deep. That is the depth of a shoe print in wet concrete. The ground itself recorded the weight of this animal. When Megatherium reared up, using its thick tail as a third leg, the tripod stance was so stable it could stand motionless for extended periods, reaching, feeding, watching. Humans arrived in South America approximately 14,000 years ago. They crossed from North America, following prey animals south. They had never seen anything like Megatherium, but Megatherium had never seen anything like them either. These were not primitive people. They were highly capable hunters who had already driven mammoths and mastodons to extinction in North America. They understood animal behavior, terrain, and coordinated ambush. Megatherium had never faced an intelligence like this. Fossilized evidence shows that humans and giant ground sloths coexisted in South America for at least 2,000 years. Ancient campsites have been found within kilometers of Megatherium bone deposits bearing cut marks. The question scientists have debated for decades is, did humans hunt Megatherium? Or did they only scavenge animals that were already dead? The evidence is becoming increasingly clear. They hunted. Hunting a giant ground sloth was not a clean kill. There is no weapon a human hunter carried that could kill 4 tons of bone-armored animal in a single strike. The strategy had to be different. Scientists believe the most effective human strategy was harassment and exhaustion, driving the animal across rough terrain, wounding it repeatedly with thrown spears, and waiting for it to weaken. A hunt that could take days. The moment the sloth turned to defend itself was the most dangerous point of the hunt. Because a cornered Megatherium did not run, it reared up, and when it reared up, it was 6 meters of fury. Those claws could disembowel a hunter in a single sweep. There is physical evidence of this. Human remains from this period have been found with wound patterns consistent with large claw strikes. Megatherium killed people. This was not a one-sided hunt. It was a contest between the largest terrestrial mammal in South America and the most dangerous social hunter on Earth. Both sides had something to fear. A single sweep of a ground sloth's front limb could knock a full-grown human 5 meters through the air. Biomechanical analysis of the arm bones shows muscle attachment points indicating extraordinary upper body strength, greater than any living land animal relative to body size. Its bony skin armor, the osteoderms, meant that spears thrown from a distance often failed to penetrate. Hunters needed to get close, and getting close to a panicked 4-ton animal with 50-centimeter claws was often fatal. Despite this, humans did kill Megatherium. The most effective strikes were to unprotected areas, the eyes, the base of the skull, the inner legs, the belly. Hunters who knew the animal's anatomy well enough to target these zones could succeed. Many did not. A wounded Megatherium would not die quickly. It was simply too large. Hunters had to track a wounded animal, sometimes for days, across difficult terrain, waiting for it to weaken enough to approach safely. Around 10,000 years ago, Megatherium went extinct across its entire South American range within a relatively short period. The timing is not a coincidence. It aligns almost perfectly with the spread of human populations across the continent. But humans were not the only pressure. The end of the last ice age brought climate change, drying and warming that transformed South American ecosystems. The forest edges and grasslands Megatherium depended on were shrinking. Climate change alone did not eliminate Megatherium. It had survived far worse climatic shifts over its 5-million-year history. But climate change combined with intensive human hunting created a pressure the species had never experienced before. The last confirmed Megatherium specimens date to approximately 8,000 years ago, but there are persistent reports from early European explorers of South America describing encounters with enormous slow-moving animals that matched the description of a ground sloth, reports that continued as recently as the 19th century. Megatherium left behind more than fossils. Scientists believe ground sloths were the primary dispersers of the seeds of the avocado, the papaya, and several other large-fruited plants, fruits too large for any living animal to swallow and disperse effectively. When the ground sloths disappeared, these plants lost their primary seed disperser. Several adapted to survive, some did not. When you eat an avocado today, you are eating a fruit that evolved its size and shape to be swallowed whole by an animal that has been extinct for 10,000 years. The avocado remembers Megatherium even if we forgot it. Megatherium americanum walked this earth for 5 million years. It survived everything the planet threw at it, until us. The giant ground sloth is one of the clearest examples of what human arrival meant for the megafauna of a continent that had never seen us before. The Deep Time Channel covers the full story of life on Earth, from the animals that shaped this planet before us to the extraordinary creatures alive in our world today. New documentary every Monday and Friday. Subscribe to never miss an episode. We will see you in the next one.